Welcome to another simple guide, this time about the coordinate adjective comma rule, a cool, useful comma rule. First, some important definitions. An adjective is a word that modifies a noun or pronoun. A coordinate adjective or coordinate adjectives are two or more adjectives that describe different features of the same item without any separating words. You need to separate them with a comma. That's a wordy definition. Let me show you what it means. I have here two example sentences. What you're looking for with the coordinate adjective rule is for two or more adjectives that are next to each other. They're describing the same noun or pronoun, and they aren't building on each other. They're describing separate things. Let me show you an example. Mrs. Larson's students stood on each other's shoulders to make a tall, khaki-colored tower. My two adjectives are tall and khaki-colored. They're describing the noun tower. Now, tall, khaki-colored, they're not building on each other. They're separate things. The tower is both tall and it's khaki-colored. So they are coordinate adjectives, which means that I need to add a comma between them. Now, the second sentence is different. The face of the bottom student turned a dark purple from the weight of all the other students. The two adjectives here are dark and purple. They're describing the face of the bottom student. But dark and purple, they're building on each other. They're part of the same combined adjective. It's not dark and purple, it's dark purple. It's one thing. So there's no coordinate adjective here because we want it to stay together. We want it to be the same thing. A good rule of thumb for this is if you can put the word and between the adjectives, use a comma there. Let's test that out with sentence number 1. Mrs. Larson's students stood on each other's shoulders to make a tall and khaki-colored tower. That works. It doesn't sound fabulous, but it's not too clunky. It tells us that we have two different adjectives describing two different aspects of the tower, so the coordinate adjective comma is appropriate. The second sentence, however, we clearly see that that would not work. The face of the bottom student turned a dark and purple from the weight of all the other students? No. That does not work. So there's no point in having a coordinate adjective comma there. Those adjectives need to go together to describe what the face looked like. Let's see how well you've learned this. Take a look at these two sentences. Find the adjectives and decide if they are coordinate adjectives, if there needs to be a comma between the two. Go ahead and pause the recording. Think you have it? Let's check. The beady-eyed, scaly crocodile closed in on the students. Beady-eyed and scaly describe the crocodile. The beady-eyed and scaly crocodile closed in on the students. Yep, that sounds about right. I need a coordinated adjective comma right there. Let's look at the second one. His dirty brown tail swished in anticipation of a tasty meal. Dirty and brown are describing tail. Well, this one's actually a little trickier because I could look at it two ways. If I was saying that the tail was a dirty brown color, those adjectives need to go together. They aren't building. They are building on each other. They aren't separate things. If that was the case, I wouldn't put a comma between them. But if I'm describing them as separate things, the tail happens to be brown and it's also dirty, then I could use a coordinate adjective comma. See where you have to kind of think about this? I think it's more likely that the tail is a dirty brown color, so I'm not going to put a comma between those two adjectives. So let's recap. If you have two or more adjectives describing the same object, they might be coordinate adjectives. Check for that by seeing if you could use the word and in between them. If you can, but you're not going to use the word, you need to show that something could go there by using a comma.